What's going on, everyone? By now, I'm sure most, if not all of you, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, are aware that Bradley Beal has been traded to the Phoenix Suns. At least at the time of recording this video, it hasn't been made official. The Wizards are still looking at a potential third team to move Chris Paul, but I imagine that'll get finalized at some point today, and you'll get that news. But the reason I want to talk about it now is because the whole issue with Bradley Beal going to the Phoenix Suns and the fact that his agent's son is the CEO of the Phoenix Suns causes a bit of a problem, and is something that I would not be shocked at all if the NBA starts investigating and looking into this. Now, there is the possibility that they don't, because Bradley Beal did have a no-trade clause. Only player in the league that had a no-trade clause. So he can kind of force it and the NBA could look at it as like, well, this is your fault. You gave him the no-trade clause. You allowed him to put himself in this position to where he could control where he wanted to go, and you did that. But the trade is the issue, right? Like if they would have gotten like DeAndre Ayton and, the pick swaps and stuff like that, okay, fine, right? It wouldn't have been a big deal. Like that's a pretty, you got a young center. I don't think anyone would bat an eyelash. The big problem and the reason that like people are trolling or just are in disbelief is because they got him for basically free. They got a couple seconds. They got pick swaps that they'll probably never use because the Phoenix Suns are going to be good for the foreseeable future. And on top of that, they got Chris Paul, who they're either going to trade or waive, and Landry Shamet, who's going to do the same thing, right? So they basically just unloaded Bradley Beal just to get off his salary, which does have some value in and of itself. But we have seen this very scenario play out, and the New York Knicks got in a lot of trouble for it. And that was the whole Jalen Brunson thing, with his father being on the staff and all that stuff, and that connection and that tie. And Jalen Brunson ended up leaving, going to the Knicks, and the Knicks ended up getting in some real trouble. And so this is a very similar situation, right? This is something where it's like, hey, Bradley Beal had other offers. The Sacramento Kings were willing to give more. Like all these teams were willing to give more. And they traded him to the Phoenix Suns, who his agent's son is the CEO for. Like, you're telling me there wasn't a little, canoodling there? You don't think that there was a little bit of tampering there? You don't think that something was a little off on that? I mean, that was reported before, as soon as the trade possibility was even announced. Everyone was like, hold up, timeout, wait a second, timeout. What's going on with this over here, right? A team like the Knicks ended up getting in trouble for a very similar thing, lost picks, all kinds of stuff, right? So that happened here. So you're going to allow that to happen again, right? Now, I don't see the NBA and Adam Silver coming in and like vetoing the trade or anything like that. Because again, there are circumstances that are very different than the Jalen Brunson thing, right? Again, the no trade clause, the fact that the Wizards, everybody kind of knew that they were just trying to unload his salary, that they're trying to rebuild and trying to get off the mistake that they made. To be fair, it wasn't the current regime of the Washington Wizards, but still, the Washington Wizards made that mistake, so they're trying to get up from out of that. You can see where this whole thing could get a little iffy, right? And it's like, okay, like you can't really punish them too heavily. But look, the NBA might not do anything. The NBA might just let it go and just say, okay, it is what it is, right? But this is what the NBA has been trying to prevent. They just made a brand new CBA to stop this very thing from happening. And the Phoenix Suns said, the F with that. We don't care about your CBA. We're going to wipe our you-know-whats with that. We're going to go do this anyway. And we're going to get this done for a bag of peanuts. And there's nothing you can do about it. So this is what the NBA has been trying to avoid. This is what the NBA just made that new CBA that screws teams for doing this very thing, because they want there to be, just not 5 teams that are the only teams that have a chance of winning the NBA championship for the next 10 years, right? They want these like every year it's someone different, right? It's the Lakers, then it's the Bucks, then it's the Nuggets, then next year it's whomever, right? Maybe it's the whatever, then the Nets, and that's what teams want. They want every year it's somebody different. Every year it's two different teams in the finals because all of the talent pool is evenly dispersed and everybody is on an even playing field, whether you're a big market team or small market team, right? They want to prevent teams from buying championships, right? They don't want a Kevin Durant to the Warriors thing to happen again. Well, granted, this isn't Kevin Durant to the Warriors, but a similar thing just happened. Bradley Beal, who has a $50 million contract and gets to almost $60 million by the time the contract's up, who is a very good player, just went to the Phoenix Suns with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who are two very good players. And now those three guys, if healthy, are going to be very good. Now, I'm still not fully convinced that they're going to win an NBA championship. It's very possible. I mean, obviously, they have three very good, very talented players. But I think that they're just going to be very thin. I think they're going to be small. They're not going to have defense. They're not going to have a true point guard to kind of put everything together. I think it's going to end up being a mess. I think it'll definitely take a little time. I think the pieces fit better than like some big three attempts, but still a lot of question marks, especially when it gets down the stretch. All three guys have kind of been used to being that guy who hits the shot, who's the one option, who's the two option, who's the three option, right? Kevin Durant kind of became the two option when he went to the Suns. Okay, well, is Bradley Beal going to be okay going from the one option to the three option? He's supposed to. He should. But that doesn't mean he's going to be able to do it or be comfortable with it or want to do that. And then at that point, you're paying, $57 million a year for a guy that's averaging 17 points a game or 20 points per game. Like, that's something else. But, regardless, the NBA could very well just say, hey, we don't like this. We didn't want this to happen. This wasn't supposed to happen. This is very shady because they were still able to keep Ayton, and the Washington Wizards basically got fleeced. And you think of like the circumstances over the years, right? And you think of like the Lakers getting Pau Gasol. All of the GMs were really upset over that and complaining and protesting and stuff like that. Chris Paul to the Lakers was another one. Literally got vetoed because of all the crying and stuff. And that deal was way more fair than what just happened. Now, granted, Chris Paul was, point guard at that point. But still, I mean, there's, like, this deal is, I mean, even the Pau Gasol deal, people thought the Grizzlies got fleeced in that Gasol deal. This makes that look like a steal for the Grizzlies, right? And you look at Kevin Durant. Again, Kevin Durant to the Warriors. That was a big thing, right? Teams were complaining. Teams were crying. When LeBron went to the Heat, with Chris Bosh, like Dan Gilbert and owners and everything were crying. They were complaining. Well, are the owners just going to stand pat this time? Or are they going to cry and complain? That's a real thing. Again, Phoenix, credit them. They were able to finagle the system and 3-month period or whatever it's been, we're able to get Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, and they basically got Bradley Beal for a bag of chips. Like, I mean, you absolutely, it makes all the sense in the world for why Phoenix was willing to do that deal. I just don't think it makes sense for the roster and the way that things are going to work going forward, right? Like, if this was, if this was a year ago, or 2 years ago or something like that, then I'd probably feel a little better about it for the Suns. Because it's like, okay, like, yeah, like, who cares? You pay whatever you can. You can get the taxpayer mid-level. You can get all of these exceptions. Well, now you don't get any of that stuff. Now you can't do any of those things. So it really puts Phoenix in a bind going forward. You're not going to have any depth, any talent, anything, right? Like when the Nets went and got James Harden, that made more sense. Because they already had a core and pieces like on the roster and were still able to make that deal to create the big three. They still had guys like Seth Curry, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, right? Bruce Brown. Like, they still had a very good, deep team, even with those three guys. and it just didn't work out. Injuries, and then James Harden just didn't like the whole Kyrie thing and the way the organization was being ran, so he wanted out, and it became a mess. It became a disaster. But now Phoenix has all the pressure in the world, and if they don't win an NBA championship, they're screwed, because you're stuck with Bradley Beal for the next 4 years on an insane contract. Kevin Durant, his window's only open for so long. He's only older. All three guys have not been models of injury, staying and playing on the court. And if one or two of these guys go down, they might not have the depth to ride out the season. I mean, look, if Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal go down, the Suns might not even make the play-in, right? Because you're talking about Bradley Beal you're talking about Devin Booker and a bunch of vet minimum guys. Like, they might not even make the play-in. Or if they do, like, they could end up being like the A seed or something like that, to where it's like, all of a sudden you lose a game or two, you're out of the playoffs entirely. That would be an absolute disaster. But that's a real reality. I mean, that's as likely to happen as it is for them to win the NBA championship. You can make an argument that that's even more likely based on the history of these guys, right? And so, I don't know. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on Kevin Durant, a lot of pressure on Bradley Beal, a lot of pressure on Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns in general, and it puts a lot of pressure on the NBA to go, hey, we need to do something here. So just something to keep in mind. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think the NBA should look into it? Do you think they will look into it? Do you think, nah, it doesn't matter, who cares? How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know down in the comments.